Audio test. You can see all of our seniors being honored by logging onto our website, www.seniors. So Americans are still looking for their stimulus checks from federal government. To show you what the new yours has been lost, maybe even thrown away. Next on today's AP News at 5:30. The stock market is already in flux. Theories abound that the upcoming presidential election will impact the stock market and investors should begin beware. What matters is not how the election impacts the stock market, what
Karen?
Hey,
Hey,
how are you doing?
doing all right? You doing okay?
Doing good. Looking over the budget.
Do what now?
Looking over the budget.
Yeah.
Scary.
Hey, Marvin.
You guys doing okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Who else is on here? Mark Showalter, Tammy.
Hey,
Hey, Tammy.
hi everybody.
Hi, guys. I wonder when we're gonna go back, be able to meet downtown.
The fiscal court's meeting downtown, they're meeting in office.
I know. They got a little bigger space and we got to separate them if they're separating. Are they separating?
Yeah, they are.
They
They're
are.
sitting on the floor. Some of them are sitting on the floor. Some of them are sitting up on the podium.
It'd have
We
to be, like it had to be Todd and then Polly over and then the mayor. Probably could only get two of us on one side instead of four.
Right.
So, you know, how it worked.
Yeah, I think we could do it.
We will, we will. You all yelled at me the other day and scared the devil out of me. You or Kevin won.
Kevin did.
Yeah, scared the devil out of me.
He thought you needed to make sure it was going.
David, how you feeling?
Doing good. Doing
Good.
good.
They're working on that house up there.
We're getting there, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll have to come in and take a look at it here in another week or two.
Well, he seems, he got his patio pour or steps poured or whatever he poured.
Yeah, front
It
porch.
looked pretty good.
Good.
Looked good.
I'm gonna grab some of my budget stuff.
How is everybody tonight?
Good. How are
Good.
you?
Hey, Todd.
Do you all know?
Working. Oh,
Sorry. Have you all heard when we will meet in person again?
We just mentioned that a while ago.
Okay, I guess I just missed that part of it.
Yeah, the fiscal court's already having meetings.
Oh, really?
They're not having the public in, but they're having meetings and then they're spreading out in the room instead of all on, one level.
Okay.
So we
Huh.
can probably,
We could sit in the chairs and let the mayor and the rest of them sit up front and separate that way.
yeah, we can set up a couple of tables on the floor and
Mhm.
do it.
Hey gang, can we hold off on this discussion till the public? We're not live yet, so I just want to make sure we're not talking about anything that would be public business yet. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. Just moving my camera around to get the best lighting.
We don't look good on these Zoom meetings. That's why we need to go back to City Hall.
It's so dark. And if you turn on the light, it makes it really bright. So I always kind of do a test, different angles. Okay, that's all right.
I do a test too, and it don't help.
Well, I do a lot of Zoom with that stuff and all that. And I've been doing a lot of Zoom classes online. So
Yeah, somebody needs a class on how to do it properly.
huh?
Somebody needs to give me a class on how to have a Zoom properly.
Oh, they're fun, really. Mine are, at least.
As you do.
That's not good. See, bad lighting. We need some. I'm too close to the window. I shall keep trying. I might go to the other room. Crazy. Get on my gear here.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Me.
Hello.
Oh. Scoot over.
Okay, good. I'm glad everybody's on. Andrew, do we have everybody on that should be on?
Ah, much better.
See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, everybody keeps moving. 7, 8. Looks like it.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Mm,
Do you all have the full screen? Should have it now.
yes.
That's a good looking bunch.
Am I supposed to be here? I got the email. I just,
Aw,
We're glad to have you there, Tim.
okay.
go back.
Uh, Why don't we go ahead and call the meeting? If I can get the. And I'll just warn everybody that earlier today, I think my image was freezing all the time, and sometimes my words came out all clumped together and really fast. So just bear with us on the technology, and hopefully we limp through tonight. But if we could all please first have a moment of silence, and then we'll ask Miss Erdley to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Okay, let's do the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with
Indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
Tracy, I'll let you go ahead and have a roll call.
Mrs. Singer Erdley,
Present.
Mr. Lesby. I see you, Mr. Lesby. Mrs. Lesby Mitchell,
Here.
Mrs. Tingle Sames. I see you, Karen. Mr. Showalter,
Here.
Mr. Stein,
Here.
Mrs. Tackett. I see you. Mr. Thompson.
Here.
All right. Everyone present.
Thank you. We have a full house. We understand from as late as this afternoon that we did not have public comments that were provided to us. Again, it shows the limitations of meeting under this format. Under mayor's comments, just a couple, not so many tonight. But several things that I did want you to know about. We're getting ready to start the process of street paving, which requires putting together the list and then actually getting your all's permission, pricing it out, getting bids, and go ahead and start with the street paving program for this summer. So wanted to ask you all if you have any ideas of streets that you travel on a regular basis that are in bad condition, or if any citizen has talked to you to complain about the condition of a street. This is the ideal time to actually get those addressed. So Eddie is online with us. He's going to be working on putting that list together. As you're aware, we've x-rayed all of our streets, and we have that technical data for all of our streets. And that can give us a pretty good idea of when we need to look at replacing them. But there's nothing like the vision test, and there's nothing like driving down a street and knowing it's in bad condition. So if you all would begin thinking about those and get those ideas to either me or Eddie, that'll be helpful. I know that there have been a number of questions about when can we go back to live council meetings. Friday afternoon, when we sent out the packet, Karen asked that question in general and or asked it of all of us. And I know it's on people's minds. So I thought we'd take just a minute or two and talk about where we think we are on that issue. Right now in Kentucky, we're still limited to gatherings of 10 people or less. I think we transitioned to the 50-person limit either late this month or sometime in July. The question for us becomes, can we social distance? And the reality is we cannot. I don't think we can host a city council meeting in City Hall and achieve social distancing. I don't think there's room for all of us and any crowd that might attend. We would like to get back to that environment though. So what Andrew and I have talked about, in fact, as recently as this afternoon, is exploring what technology we would need and what the cost would be of that technology to be able to broadcast from other locations. We're happy to convene in larger locations in Georgetown, but we have the broadcast capacity from city council chambers. And that's something that's real important to us. So we're willing to explore how we might have that broadcast ability from other larger locations like the extension office or someplace where we would have plenty of room to spread out and any public that wanted to attend might be able to spread out. So,
Mayor,
yes, ma'am.
it's not the fiscal court. I talked to one of the magistrates and they said they were doing it in the fiscal court. They still weren't having the public coming in, but they were able to spread out in the fiscal court, record it, and have, the newspaper was in there and people that needed to speak at the time they needed to speak could come in. Could we use the fiscal court?
We could use the fiscal court, but if the idea is to let the public be able to come to our meetings, we're not going to achieve that in either location.
Well, if they were doing it, I'll have to look and see how they're doing it. I was just told by one of the magistrates that they were physically getting back together. So that's the first step to getting back to normal and being open to the public, but they were still taping it. It's a little easier than what we're doing with each other. And then they had people in there as they needed to come in. And I don't know if they had any public come in there if they wanted to have a public concern or not. I don't know about that. So I'll go look at one of their tapes.
Yeah, they are having some meetings together, the court themselves, but they're not allowing the public in.
Okay. Well, I just thought maybe that's the first step. We have something similar to what they're having, and we can use their facility if City Hall won't allow it to do that, to set up that way.
Yeah, I'm questioning the value add. When we get to the point where we have the ability to bring the public back in, I think that is the real goal and the real value here. For now, I'm happy to meet in this venue, and until our guidelines change, I don't think we have a lot of alternative other than to meet and continue to exclude the public. So that can come back to us whenever you all want to discuss it again.
Hey, Mayor, just for your information, Great Crossing High School may have the facility and the resources available to broadcast us and to accommodate more people, perhaps. Just got word from an audience member that could be an option. So I just want to share that with you.
Good. And I think we should explore all of those, because even when we get to the point where we do invite the public back, until there's a rock solid cure for this, or a preventative element to it, to where we're not advised to be distant from people still, then I think City Hall is going to be out of the picture. So we're going to have to evaluate those opportunities. speaking of the high school and Great Crossing High School, Scott County High School, and the Phoenix Academy, some of you all may have been aware that last night they had a baccalaureate service on Facebook for all three graduating classes. And they'll conclude their graduation exercises this weekend. I think the administration, the principals have knocked themselves out to take a really unusual set of circumstances and give these seniors as good a send off and as proud of a send off as they can. There will be parades of graduates around our bypass, where families can get on the side of the bypass and they can cheer for their graduate and still be socially distant. And I know, I believe they're Friday night and Saturday night of this week. Do you know, Todd or David?
I haven't heard of any.
Okay, I think Scott County's maybe on Friday night and Great Crossing's on Saturday night when they do this trip around the bypass, if anybody would like to participate. And then lastly, before we get into the printed part of the agenda, just to make reference to the fact that yesterday there was probably the largest downtown gathering of protests and assembly that there's ever been in the history of Georgetown. Somewhere between 500 and 750 people gathered downtown to protest racism in America and marched in a peaceful fashion. I was glad to be there. I was glad to be joined by Chief Bossy and some of his officers, along with Judge Covington, the sheriff, and some of their deputies, and this thing being organized by 3 or 4 young ladies that were all, I think, between the ages of 20 and 25, who had this thing very well organized. There were opportunities to register to vote. They advised the crowd about the peaceful nature of the gathering and the march. They advised people to stay out of the street. They even advised people to, for those that had not been able to bring a mask with them, they provided free masks for people who chose to do so. And they asked that downtown be left cleaner than they found it. So could not be more proud of the way these people conducted themselves and the way our citizens conducted themselves. And our fire marshal was there, Tim, thank you. And Tammy, thank you for attending. And that is all of the mayor's comments. So getting back to our agenda, under city attorney, Devin has a municipal order approving a contract. It's another one of the CDBG contracts that we did not have ready for the last council meeting. And Devin, the acronym again is?
Home Energy Rating Services, or system. So it's just a service that's required for, I assume, the rehabs primarily, but also the rebuilds for the project. It'll all be funded through CDBG dollars, so it won't take any city dollars.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval of that municipal order?
I'll make a motion, sir.
Thank you. Polly made the motion, and the second was?
Second.
Are you straight on the second, Tracy?
Yes, I have it. And when we get done with this, can we go back to the minutes?
Oh, you're saying I didn't follow my own agenda again.
It's okay.
Thank you. So we have a motion for approval and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none, that is approved, and we'll go back and give you an opportunity to look at the minutes of our last meeting.
Mayor, I make a motion for the minutes to be approved as written.
Thank you.
I make a second.
And seconded. Thank you all for getting me off the hook again. If there are no questions about the minutes, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. Okay, Devin, we'll go back to municipal order approving surplus of property, and this has to do with land.
Correct. We acquired this land for the Lands Run Business Park infrastructure, and essentially that was our only purpose in acquiring it. So this is an opportunity for us to divest ourselves of some property that's not really going to any good use anymore.
Just to clarify that we bought that land with house on it, and we still want the land. What we're asking is to have the house sold and moved.
Right. Sorry, a portion
Citizen,
of the property.
right. A citizen had expressed interest in actually purchasing the house and moving it. And we said, we would love to do that, but first we have to surplus it, and second, we have to bid it out. It will actually help us remove a liability that we would have to demolish at some point in the future. It's not a habitable house. It's a liability, and we stand to actually get some profit out of it.
Good.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Marvin.
I'll second.
And second by Polly. If there are no questions for Andrew or Devin, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
No, Mayor, can I ask a quick question though?
Sure.
Can you hear me okay, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Andrew or Devin, would it be appropriate to auction the house off, or do you think a bid process is the best means to do that?
I think we were actually thinking of auction, David. I said bid, but I anticipated we would put it on our auction site that we use for all of our disposition of surplus property. We could have it auctioned by a professional auctioneer. I guess I'm worried this is a real specific ask. We're asking somebody to come and buy it and move it. So I'm not sure logistically how we're going to do that yet. I just know that the first step is declaring it surplus, but we're happy to have that conversation, David.
Right. And the statute authorizes us to dispose of it through auction or bid. So I think we just give ourselves the option there, but you may be right that that's a better way to approach it.
Okay. Any other questions? Tracy, do we have a motion and a second on this?
We do. Marvin was motion, Polly was second.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. That passes. So just to keep my record perfectly intact for the evening, if we could go back up, item 4 on the agenda, and if everybody could indicate they received the check register.
Got it.
Thank you very much. I believe that takes us down to number 8 on the agenda under the Finance Department. And you'll see that we've got 2 first readings tonight. One is to amend the budget here at the end of the budget year, as we've done in other previous years, just to get that budget cleaned up at the direction of our auditors, actually. And then we'll go into the first reading of the budget ordinance and the purchase of our insurance. So, Stacy, is there anything that you need to add before Tracy reads the ordinance?
Is the next year's budget the first item,
No, it's first reading of the budget amendment.
the amendment? And like you've already said, it's mainly cleanup items. We always end the year with certain utility accounts or telephone accounts, motor fuel that need a little extra to get through. A few couple cleanup items that council had approved previously. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but there was a memo and multiple documents explaining them all in the packet. So
I have a question on the vehicle. If I can read on my little phone with this, the vehicle for the general government is Toyota not providing the mayor's vehicle anymore? Or why does it have a lease on it? Does that say mayor's vehicle? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, we're leasing the mayor's vehicle.
It's not coming from Toyota as it used to?
We this last model year change, Karen, about a year and a half ago, we went through a pretty long discussion with Toyota about the status of those cars going forward.
Uh-huh.
We've enjoyed the tradition, but they indicated of their 11 manufacturing plants in America, this is the only plant that does something like that.
Right.
We explained that, that this has been a good tradition and it's been kind of fun to talk about, but frankly, Georgetown can afford to buy a vehicle for its operations. So we concluded, they came back after discussing it with Plano and decided they would make one more year's gift of those cars, which they did about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. Okay. And that those would be the last ones that they did. I have assigned that car to Andrew. So the city still owns the car. And then I leased a vehicle through our enterprise lease program for the use of the mayor's office.
Is it a Toyota?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. From and a Toyota that's produced at this plant.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions before Tracy has first reading? Thanks, Tracy.
An ordinance amending the annual budget ordinance for fiscal year July 1, 2019 through June 30, 2020. Summary, general fund. Prior year revenues are increased by $130,768. Intergovernmental revenue is increased by $45,000. General government expenses are increased by $8,900. City clerk expenses are increased by $985. Utilities are increased by $45,000. Expenses are increased by $19,333. Dispatch expenses are increased by $90,000. Public works expenses are increased by $5,000. Transfer to other funds are increased by $6,550. Grant fund. Federal grant revenues are increased by $27,000. Fire department expenses are increased by $27,000. Environmental services fund. Sanitation expenses are increased by $54,000. Cemetery fund. Intergovernmental revenues are increased by $6,550. Transfers from other funds are increased by $6,550. Cemetery expenses are increased by $13,100. Capital projects fund. Other revenues are increased by $208,000. Capital expenses are increased by $208,000. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. This ordinance shall take effect after its passage and publication according to law. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time, June 8th, 2020.
Thank you. So we will have second reading in our next council meeting and vote on that amendment ordinance at that time. Since we've got 2 weeks before we do that, if there's any questions for Stacy, please let her know and we'll do our best to get you an answer. Stacy, if we could, now let's go forward with first reading of the budget ordinance for our upcoming budget year. And I think we gave a pretty detailed analysis at the last council meeting, other than some general questions about the budget and the decisions that we had to make. I don't have a lot of clarification to ask for tonight that I've heard. I would just, as we have first reading, remind the council that this is a very lean budget, and it represents what we think are the essentials. And as I indicated in the budget message, we have a need, particularly in terms of our first responders and ultimately their head count and their salaries. And that need for funding, important funding for those departments, continues to exist. And as soon as we get through these budget difficulties, I know we'll all be ready to renew those conversations. So if there's any questions about the presentation we made at the last meeting, Stacy would be glad to answer those for you. And if not, then I would ask Tracy to do first reading of the ordinance.
I have a couple of questions if I can.
Sure.
I watched it. I wasn't tuned in to the last meeting, but I did watch it a couple of times online. So I want to make sure we've got to budget this current year's budget. Do we have to take $2 million out of reserve to shortfall for this year's budget? Is that right or wrong? Okay.
You're correct.
Okay, so we're taking two, and currently before taking out those 2 million, how much do we have in reserves? Is it 9 million?
We were projecting that by June 30, we would end this year with about 9.2. So we have around 11.
Okay.
Right.
So
Start the
then
fiscal year.
So 9 million, but we're going to take out 4 million to balance the new budget.
If worst case scenario happens.
Okay, but
That's
on the
the worst
budget that we're being presented, it's being balanced off of that. So revenues don't come in.
Correct.
Okay, so that would leave us 4 million in reserves at that point in time. Okay, all right. Got it. And another question, which you talked about it at the last meeting, but I didn't really understand it. The city's contribution in Parks and Recreation went up 174,000 from last year.
Yes, they are experiencing probably the worst revenue shortfall of any city departments or city-related organizations. Andrew and I had extensive conversations with Kimberly Rice and asked her to seriously review her revenue estimates. Obviously, she's practically been shut down for a few months, and even as she's allowed to start opening back up this month, it's in a much more limited capacity than what they've had in the past. So one good thing about Parks and Rec is we give them their budget allocation monthly. So we will have the opportunity many times throughout the year to check in with them and see how their revenues are doing, if they're rebounding. And we can adjust that allocation at any point throughout the year if their revenues recover. But mostly she was looking at, obviously, memberships have decreased. If people can't use their memberships, they've canceled them. Summer programs are either not happening or happening in limited capacities. So it's not that their expenses increased. It was strictly their revenue shortfalls that caused our allocation to increase, or projected revenue shortfalls.
So since this is kind of a serious area, because they're the thing that's in the city that's closest to being business operated. Everything else is not really, doesn't really fall like that, but they really, really do. So have they looked at and made a business plan as in how they're really going to handle this? Because, well, one, we had a new gym came to town and it's done very, very well. And I'm sure that's affected the pavilion straight on, nothing to do with the pandemic, but the pandemic has had to really affect them. And even though we're starting to get back to stuff, and some of it's come back with a vengeance, but other things haven't. And I think they're one of it. And I have concerns that even what we're talking about here is going to be enough for them if we're thinking they're going to be business as usual, but they're not going to be. So they really need to do a business plan to figure out how that they're going to adjust these numbers, instead of us just saying, okay, you're going to get more money, your taxpayers' money. No, you got to adjust somehow or the other. So that's my concerned with that.
What I would say, Karen, is they are, that board and their brand new director are working on exactly that. The amount, they cut significantly more out of the budget than our allocation increased. Significantly more. They eliminated a whole host of part-time positions and have been very severe with it. Kimberly Rice has done an outstanding job with working with that board in a way that their directors haven't had to in the past. I mentioned last meeting that it is a unique agency in that it actually earns 42% of its own revenue. And we think what we've created is a worst case scenario, and that if we're fortunate and watch this every month, that we can reduce their allocation at some point during the year because their revenues will have improved. You're muted. You're muted, Karen.
That's not Sassy Boots in the background. I just want you to know.
That's at my house.
Oh, okay.
Who let the dog out, Tom?
The other big dog.
Somebody's clearly in my backyard and Cooper's not happy about it.
I know. I started smiling earlier because my cats were doing something across the room. So our animals interrupt us with this. We'll have to bring them to City Hall with us when we come back.
That's right.
But at least we get a chuckle out of something.
Well, you know what? I needed a laugh right then. So let's see. Karen, did that answer your questions?
It did.
At least for the moment?
It did.
Okay.
Mhm.
So now are we ready for first reading of the new budget ordinance? You're muted, Tracy. Thank you.
Darn. An ordinance of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal period July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. Summary, Section 1. Adopts by incorporated exhibit the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget of the City of Georgetown, Kentucky as follows. Governmental funds. Prior year revenues, $7,079,427. Revenues. Municipal taxation, $2,351,000. Licenses and permits, $16,568,050. Fines and forfeitures, $143,250. Intergovernmental revenues, $7,164,384. Charges for service, $207,220. Other revenue, $35,000. Other financing source transfers, $78,416. Total city revenues, $26,547,320. Expenditures. General government, $1,516,707. City council, $187,435. City clerk, $269,792. Police, $7,254,235. Public works, $2,982,576. Fire, $5,811,555. Code enforcement, $326,641. Building inspection, $552,350. Dispatch telecommunications, $1,606,371. Utilities, $830,000. Community services, $1,154,634. Interlocal, $5,170,087. Capital outlay, $4,361,896. Debt service, $1,171,676. Transfer to other funds, $430,792. Total city expenditures, $33,626,747. Proprietary funds, revenues, Sanitation, $2,085,250. Recycling, $13,000. Cemetery, $230,000. Intergovernmental revenue, $246,434. Other revenue, $4,000. Other financing sources transfers, $352,376. Total proprietary revenues, $2,931,060. Expenditures, sanitation, $1,831,791. Recycling, $260,640. Stormwater, $359,303. Cemetery, $346,437. Total proprietary expenditures, $2,798,171. Section 2 authorizes the mayor, except as provided in the Georgetown Purchasing Policy adopted in Municipal Order 11028, to enter into any contracts or agreements necessary to fulfill the operation of city government within the allocations listed in this ordinance. Section 3 provides that if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is for any reason held unconstitutional or otherwise invalid, such infirmity shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. Section 4 provides that all ordinances or parts of this ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time, June 8th, 2020.
Thank you. That will constitute first reading. And just like the budget amendment that we're working on, let Stacy know if you have any questions. Stacy or Tracy know if you have any questions, and we'll do our best to get those answered. Item C under finance is a municipal order approving the renewal of our liability, property, and workers' compensation insurance coverage. Very pleasantly surprised that our workers' compensation expenses actually went down just a little bit. You'll recall we had several years with very bad experiences, and our workers' comp rate is based on a 3-year rolling average. So apparently we rolled off a bad year and we rolled on a little bit better year. So we actually had some savings on our workers' compensation policies. And I think, Stacy, you mentioned to me, or Stacy gone now? She may be gone.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're there. You just moved on the screen. That property and casualty was up like 4%.
Yes. Yes. And we budgeted a 5% increase. So
these came in a good place for us. And if no questions for Stacy, we'll entertain a motion to approve that municipal order.
I'll make a motion.
Second, Mayor.
Motion's made by Polly and seconded by Connie. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? So that passes. Thank you. Thank you, Stacy. Anything else that you've got for us tonight?
No, that's all. Like I said, just let me know if you have any questions. And if you need my phone number, please email me. I'm happy to give it to you if you need to have a conversation. I'm happy to give you my cell phone number if you need to talk.
Okay, thank you. Under Police Department, we've got 2 resolutions accepting grants. The first one is accepting, Devin, are we accepting or applying in this case?
For the highway safety one, we're accepting, and for the VOCA one, we've not applied yet. We're seeking approval to apply for that.
All right. Now you and the officer working on the first resolution had recrafted that, I thought, in a pretty smart way. Would you explain that?
Yeah, Lieutenant Lodel, he's for the last few years at least taken the lead from the police department on this grant, and it provides the opportunity for us to do some overtime patrols and different stops for different traffic safety issues. So it's been a really good grant, but there's a period of the year where we're, for staffing purposes, really unable to use the funding. So he applied for a half-year grant to cut down on all the administrative portions that he was tending to for those other 6 months. So I thought that was really smart of him. And I think Sergeant Gardner, he's working with on it as well. So I thought that was a really smart way to handle our resources. So it'll be a smaller amount of money, but we're going to be able to spend it all. So.
Sounds good. Is there a motion for approval of that grant?
Motion.
Thank
Second.
you. With the motion, and I had seconds from Karen and Paula. Karen, and what's your name, Connie?
It's okay. Go, Karen.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor of that resolution, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you. And then item B is the resolution where you're approving us asking to renew our VOCA grant, the Victim of Crime Advocacy Grant.
Motion.
Thank you, Marvin. And Todd with the second. Okay. If there are no questions about that, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. And that concludes the printed part of the agenda. And it is time for council comments. Connie, I'm just going to go backwards from the way I was last time. I'll start with you.
You answered my questions when it was about the, when we were going to be able to meet in council chambers again. I know you're working on it. And other than that, I'm good. Hope everybody's doing good. I'm staying busy. I have nothing else.
Great. Thank you. Todd?
Glad to see everyone's doing okay. And I have nothing.
Thank you. Polly? You're muted.
Okay, you got me?
Got you.
Okay. I feel like we're on Jeopardy here, like hitting the buzzer to try to get on. Then I tried to, it just didn't work. But anyhow, I don't really have anything. Just good to see everybody. And it'll be nice to see you all when we get back together. And look forward to that time. And just stay safe and stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.
Thank you. Tammy?
Yes, I just have one quick question. The motor vehicle tax payment, do we have any idea when that's going to open back up and how it's going to work when it does?
I don't. The clerk's office, I know they're doing mail-in. You talking about the county clerk's office, Tammy?
Well, I'm one of those whose birthday's in April, and so I have mine are due. And I also noticed on the budget that our year-to-date was short, and I figured that was because people are not paying yet. And I was just wondering when we're going to be expected to and how to do that.
Yeah, I think you can. Mine was due in April too, so I'm driving around on expired tags on our personal car. But they've extended those. Officers are not writing tickets for that now. And I think the county clerk is doing those renewals via mail. And they've even got a physical drop-off place, even though their office isn't open yet. So they can help. They can help.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an online option, which I actually didn't know. It's not super noticeable on the little postcard, but there is an online option if you know folks who prefer to do it that way.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Karen, have you got your license plate renewed?
No, I haven't. I tried to call today and I couldn't get through the office. So I've got 3 vehicles expired tags.
Do you have anything tonight, Karen?
I have a couple of things on the cemetery because Memorial Day, we just had Memorial Day. I had a few people say, and actually the area they're talking about is right where my mom and dad's, near where mom and dad are buried. But you come around the curve and you can't get 2 cars there. So people have gotten off into the grass, and when it was so wet, they've made dips into the grass and everything. But what they're actually asking when they say when they get off to get into the grass, it's a huge drop, and it really is a huge drop. Your car can almost, if you got a low car, can almost scrape when you get off. And so they were just asking me if there's anything we could do, even put gravel there or build it up and that kind of stuff to get around that curve. So if you talk to Gene, he'll know where it's at, because it's right in the curve where my mom and dad have their monument. And what they did, why it's so different now, is because on the opposite side, they put up stakes so that you couldn't get into that because you're closer to someone's actual monument over there. So that's what's forced everybody off onto the other side. And it's a substantial dip when they have to get off into the gravel for 2 cars to pass. So that was brought to me by about 4 people during Memorial Day. And then we got parking issues on Williamsburg. Williamsburg Lane, they're parking on both sides of the street. So you can hardly get a car down. So I told the gentleman, I brought it up last year to the council, and he says since warm weather's back, they're parking all over the place again. And I told him I'd bring it up tonight. And also, how are we doing with the parking ordinance? And where is that? Because the other issue for tonight is also Elkhorn Green, that they're parking in the medians on the grass instead of parking on the street or in the road where they're supposed to be parking. So that's 2 parking issues that came up to me this week.
Would you like for me to address that, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Karen, we just had our first Zoom meeting last month, and we're about ready for the ordinance to be brought to the full traffic committee, which we're meeting on the 15th of this month. Eddie's been working on it diligently, so we're very close, and I'll know more on the 15th, and I can send you an email, but we are diligently working on it. We're about ready to bring it to council within the next probably month.
Okay, Connie, if the next council meeting, if you can just bring it back up again, give an update on it, then I can just let them have an update on it.
I will do that. Absolutely.
Okay. That sounds good. And Mayor, still, we can get meetings that aren't on Zoom because they're very awkward, if nothing else. They're kind of hard to communicate with each other. But that's it. Thank you very much.
Again, I want to go back to your other questions.
Yeah.
The cemetery thing, I know exactly the corner you're talking about, and it gets rutted out whenever there's wet weather. Eddie, can you get with Gene and just take a look at that? That may be something that was with our public works ability to strengthen that, or it's not a big area. We might be able to do something there. And then on Williamsburg Lane, Karen, people need reminding, and they need reminding every summer probably. So we'll see if they can't receive that reminder.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to add one point on the traffic ordinance. I know Eddie he's been really working hard on that in the traffic committee as well. I would probably classify that, we made the promise to the public we wouldn't pass anything or vote on anything controversial during this time. So hopefully, as we can find a location where we can invite the public safely and stream that would be which it sounds like, we're heading in that direction and looking to that. So I would say this qualifies as one of those we wouldn't try to pass without, easy public access to comment.
Good point. Thank you, Devin.
Yeah, hopefully we're able to achieve that soon.
Yeah. We kind of promised each other that we would not do big, important, sweeping things on this platform unless we just had to. So that's a good catch. Okay, David.
Yes, Mayor. Quick question for Stacy. And Stacy, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I remember, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, we were looking at some of the financial information.
Yes.
And we were going to keep an eye on one of the revenues that hadn't yet posted. And honestly, I can't remember if that was
I'm sure it was payroll, probably payroll taxes and net profits. The last payment we received was for deposits from May 1st to May 18th, which would still be April returns. So as of today, because we don't have that second payment for April yet, we're at about 81% of what we collected last April for payroll taxes. There will be a second payment coming. We'll see how much that one will be. And then for net profits, I think we were still about 200,000 behind where we were this time last year. Some of that could be due to the change in the filing dates. So we'll know more in July.
Okay. I was just, if you can hear me, I was going to say, if when you get, those are neat reports. We all like to see those when they come in. And that was one of the things I know we were pretty committed to kind of keeping an eye on. So
yes.
Anyway.
And I looked at it this afternoon before the meeting to make sure nothing new had come in, and it hadn't.
Yeah. Okay. Like Karen, I was in the cemetery during the Memorial Day weekend, and it was really pretty, very, very nice. And we're lucky to have such a wonderful place. So anything we can do to maintain it and keep it in good working order, I certainly support that as well. But that's it, Mayor. I appreciate everyone being a part of this tonight. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, David. Marvin.
I don't have a whole lot. Just you had mentioned about tough budget, which you've done a very good job. But I want this council to realize once we come out of this pandemic that we're in, or whatever you want to call it, and we start seeing improvements, I would tremendously appreciate you start looking at the employees again. They do a great job for this community. They're working hard, and we need to do what we can to bring the salaries and so forth up with the other communities. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Marvin. That's we're going to monitor it closely. Just as David indicated, county, David, I'm keeping in communication with Joe Pattable what county's revenues are looking like, and they're not as down as they thought they might be. So we're going to look for every encouraging sign. We're getting more information about the CARES Act and what funding might be available to Georgetown and what purposes we might be able to use it for. And maybe there's a little more flexibility than we first thought. And so I think that's all our first priority is to constantly gauge this to make sure that we haven't been too severe and that we're acknowledging the good stuff that's going on when we can and recognize it in the way we can.
That's all I got, Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Marvin or Mark? I'm sorry.
No, nothing, Mayor.
You're good?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else to come before the council tonight?
Mayor, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Do you have any idea what our unemployment, Georgetown, Scott County, what our unemployment rate was March, April versus what it's become May into the 1st of June? Do you have those numbers or have the ability for next meeting to get those numbers?
I will get numbers for the next meeting, or if I can get them sooner, I'll send them out.
Okay, that would be great because, March and April was bad, but once stores started opening, things came back quickly, which surprised me. But I would like to know, like the restaurant, the service industries, though, what did they do? How well have they come back?
Yeah. That's probably going to be a mixed picture, Karen, since they had real restrictions on how many of their patrons they could let back in.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's still a big concern, I think, for our community is what the service industry is doing here. So, but anyway, I'd like to have those numbers if possible.
Okay. But Polly had asked a similar question early, and we'll do our best to track that.
Okay.
Okay. If there's nothing else to come before the council, thank you all very much for this awkward setting and letting me jump all over the agenda the way you let me.